So this is what the engine is going to be going into. It's a Bluebird Wanderlodge. It's got an 8V92, 500 horsepower, and the engine is seized, as these things do. So I got all the injectors out, but it's not spinning around, so it's gotta come out. And I actually bought another 8V92. It's the exact replacement. Same horsepower, same application, should be a direct bolt in. And then I realized, well, I never quite like these engines. They're kind of cool being 2-cycle and all that, but it just doesn't have the torque. We went over to Colorado, and several times we had a real hard time getting into the into the campgrounds or out of the campgrounds, because it just doesn't have the horsepower or torque to push this thing up a hill. You see, it's got a giant turbo, so once the turbo spools up, then it'll make some half decent power. But without the turbo boosts, then it's just has no, it's gutless, totally gutless. It's hardly able. And this is a heavy RV. It's probably 40,000 pounds, and you try to get started up a hill, it just won't move. You just put your foot to the floor and it's just flat out not moving. You gotta just back up all the way, to flat ground, and then some, so you can make a big run for it. You can just floor it and gradually accelerate, and then hopefully you have enough momentum to make it up the hill, because if you're not going at least 25 miles an hour, you're just not going to make it. So just come to a dead stop with your foot to the floor. So it's a nice RV otherwise. It's almost 30 years old, and the paint job on it looks nice. It's probably been undercover most of its life. I think I called a guy about doing insulation. Right now there's no insulation in his workshop, so first step is to get the workshop insulated, and because we got a whole bunch of stuff in here, and everything has to come out for the installation guy to do his work. So that'll be some work. I got a bunch of building materials here, so I don't think I should be tearing into that engine just yet before I got the insulation stuff done, although I'm eager to. I want us to get started today. Take this thing apart and see what it looks like inside. Alright, so I'm just going to do a little voiceover for this section, because I was having horrible wind noise issues and it was hard to hear anything that I was saying. So that's the engine I'm going to put into RV. It's a Caterpillar 3412. So it's a 12-cylinder engine, 3400 series. So a lot of people will probably be familiar with the 3406. So this is basically the same bore, slightly less stroke. It's 1649 cubic inches. So it's a big motor, dual turbo. And as you see it there, that's how I bought it and brought it back home. Came from out west in the West Texas oil fields. It was probably a pump engine or something. And so yeah, we brought it back home, and I don't know much about it yet. I just pretty much held a tape measure to it and held a tape measure to the 8V92 and see that, okay, the basic dimensions are going to work. This is actually one of the smallest engines that they had on the lot as far as oil field engines. They come much bigger than that, so to where even I wouldn't know what to do with one, but so yeah, here you see they robbed some parts off of it. The engine failed for some reason, and they took some parts off of it and left a bunch of stuff disconnected, and surely it's just full of water and may not be rebuildable at all, right? That you're taking a bit of a chance buying something like this, not seeing it running. It's most likely at least seized up and needs to be totally taken apart and rebuilt and all that. And so I didn't pay too much money for it, like I think $2,000 or $2,500 or something. So they're big hunk iron. They're just a scrap value or even parts value would be, you'd be able to recover that investment. So pretty much just one of the first steps here is just to see if this engine is something that is rebuildable, right? Make sure it doesn't have a broken crankshaft or some cracked block or just some major issue that's makes it to where you have to spend $20,000 fixing up the engine. So here's all the gauges. So it's clearly on the pump type installation. They have all the parts are bolted right to it. That's the aftercooler right there. So it's because it's not in a vehicle, you can't really run air over an aftercooler or intercooler as they call it. So this just uses engine coolant. So the turbos just blow right into that, and then it goes through a cooler. That's the coolant line right there. That's actually the return to the block is right there. The feed is on the other side. The supply for the aftercooler is actually on the other side. It comes directly from the bottom radiator hose, so it gets the coolest water that's available in the system right there, along with the oil cooler. So it goes from there and then up along the side of the engine and directly to the aftercooler, so it bypasses it doesn't go through the thermostat. It gets the water before it goes into the engine and recirculates, because the engine might be running hotter than the return line from the radiator. So there it is. That's what a Detroit diesel 8V92 looks like. Like I say, according to my measurements, it's about the same height and the same width. The big difference is in the length. You can see this is actually a pretty short looking motor, right? So I measured it at 44 inches. And that other one came in at, what was it? 60, I think, with that big pulley on it. The big pulley on the front, it's got a big pulley out here that sticks out. So with that, it's about 60 inches. If you take that off, then the water pump is the next biggest thing on the cat engine. And so with the water pump, then it was at 55 or something. So it's I got a good 10 to 12 inches extra space that I need to come up with. One thing that's really annoying about these things is, you see how this is on the back? This is actually underneath the bedroom floor in the Wanderlodge. So the bedroom floor comes in right here and then this way. And so getting to this stuff is absolutely murderously difficult. So it's, and then also the coolant lines on this thing, very hard to get to. Actually, that's, I guess, the output. This is the coolant line. Replacing this is child's play here, but when it's actually in the RV, it is a 2-day job just to get this line disconnected here and disconnected over there, and put a new line in. It's and then there's this thing that's a hydraulic pump. So this actually does both. You see how it has, I guess this is the input, and then there's 1, 2, 3. I think this does the power steering, these two, and then those two do the fan. So this is a specialty, as far as I can tell. It's kind of special to the Wanderlodges. So I'm thinking I'll probably take this one and put it on it'd probably be best to put it on a PTO on the transmission, because I don't know how else, it might not take a pulley. An air compressor, you can buy air compressors that have a pulley on them, and so you can drive it with a belt, but I don't think you can do that with this thing. This is a very specialist Wanderlodge thing, so I'll be retrofitting that on the new engine somehow. A PTO, I think, is the best option. There's your alternator. It's actually got dual alternators, so I think just because it has electrical system for the coach and one for the engine. So, and actually on mine, I think only the engine one was charging, so one of them might be broken. Probably has been broken for a long time and nobody wants to deal with it, because getting to this alternator is, it's criminal how difficult that is. See, and there's another alternator down here. That's the alternator. There's a air conditioning compressor. So I don't think nobody seems to bother with these anymore, because you can run the generator and have the roof ACs, and then. So yeah, I'm just back at the 8V92 here. You see back there, that's the air compressor right there. It's hidden. So on the cat engine, you know, where we get in trouble is the turbos are back there. So the turbos would just be hitting this. So the plan is to cut this wall out. You see this insulation is completely trashed anyway. So cut this out so that basically the ceiling would just go at the same height back there. There's some plumbing back here that I'll have to reroute that. There's some plumbing behind this wall in the corner, so I'll have to take the plumbing out, reroute it, cut here, cut along the ceiling there, so that this will be out. Ah, man, I tell you, I've hit my head on this thing so many times. Yeah, you see, because up to this ceiling there's actually quite a bit of space, right? It's got this tank here, makes it look small, but you know, and this stuff can all be gotten rid of. This and that. That's like, I think there's actually a temperature sensor, so if your engine is on fire, it'll it'll tell you. I think it literally, that's what it says, like engine fire or something. That there's one over here and one over there. So you see all this stuff's kind of needs to be redone anyway. It's all falling down, and manifold is kind of above the frame. So if you look at the side of the frame to the exhaust manifold, it's almost like right here. And as far as I can tell, at least with my crude tape measurement, the cat is going to be about the same place. But then you see this exhaust manifold is kind of flat, so it's kind of tucked in over here. And so that might get us into trouble over here. And so this will be something I need to look at. And in fact, there's a frame rail back there. If you look at this right there where my finger's pointing, there's actually a frame rail on top of the frame rail. And so I think that's probably the biggest pinch point I see right now. Is I don't like cutting frames, so we'll have to see what needs to be done about that. Over here it's a little bit easier, but you see the frame rails actually have a big support thing tying them together. So I think that's, and then you see there's a frame rail. This angled piece here is for the fan, so it has a pretty big radiator already, but you know, this engine is 500 horsepower, so the radiator's designed for 500 horsepower. So my thinking is, on this side there used to be a heating system. This has already been taken out before I got the coach. My thinking is I can, and then this is a fuel filter. I might be able to get a more compact fuel filter or something on top of the engine. In fact, this is a primary filter, and then the secondary filter is that red one over there. A lot of times they just have a primary and secondary together over there, so that's can probably get rid of this somehow, relocate it. And this is oil system, so these 8V92s, they burn so much oil that they actually have an oil tank here that you can put air pressure in, and then you can squeeze this handle and that'll inject oil into the engine. So it's a pretty sad state of affair if your engine needs so much oil to be added that it actually has, from the manufacturer new, has a system there that you can use to add oil to the engine since it uses so much. So anyway, clean all this stuff up. There's room for a pretty big radiator here with an electric fan. So that's my thinking there. And I might relocate the batteries too. We'll have to see. My thinking there is See, there's already a battery compartment here. This is for the inverter and all that, so I can put the inverter stuff over in one of the bays, use some of that space, or I can just have less batteries for the inverter, you know, maybe 4 for the engine and 4 for the inverter, something like that. And maybe have a few extra batteries over there, run the cables, something. I need to figure that out. But my thought was to put a pony motor here that can run an alternator and maybe an air pump, and so that way you can run a small pony motor here, and it can generate electricity and air, and so that way, like when you first start this thing, you don't have to run the main engine for 10 minutes to air up all the airbags and everything. You can just run the pony motor, and of course it'll generate electricity, and so that'll, I think, save you from having to wear the engine down with just idling. Idling is not very good for diesels for long periods of time. And we'll also have more electricity for running if I want to put a big fan in here. There's a grill in here. I would kind of like to make that bigger, so that way the air from both sides coming in can come out through there. I don't know how I'm gonna go about doing that. I mean, it's making a hole is easy, but you don't want to make it too ugly, right? So this is fiberglass, so it's yeah, you see the fiberglass is molded here, so there will, I don't think you can prettily cut this. Oh, bump my head again, I tell you. About 5 times a day when you're here. I was talking about on the aftercooler, I wanted to have the separate radiator, so that would go right here, and so it would help feed cool water to the aftercooler. And then also, if the engine's just getting hot, then you know, it'll just help to cool the engine down, so it'll help the other radiator to come up with the extra cooling for the extra horsepower that we need. So I mean, that we're generating, which generates more heat. So that's about the level of detail that I got in my plan right now. This is where normally the air filter goes. I can probably the air filter that's in it, it's pretty huge. I think it'll be fine for that engine. You see, I don't think the air filter that's on it is that much bigger, although there's 2 of them. Probably between the 2 of them they have a little bit more size, but not a whole lot. So you can always put a vacuum thing on it and see if it's looks like it's doing okay. Anyway, that's the starting point of our project right here. That's all the major components, and watch the front of the backhoe go down about 6 inches before the engine comes off the ground. It actually had no problem lifting it up. I think it's a tire pressure issue more than a backhoe issue. So let me speed up the video a little bit. And so yeah, that's the engine, that's the RV. As you see, we got the RV out of the shop right now, so we're gonna do spray foam, and everything's got to come out, and then we go spray foam, and then everything's got to go back in. So we got some work ahead of us. So right now I'm just gonna put it under the lean-to there, being real gentle with this engine, trying not to break it before I even get started. I don't know the outcome of this project yet. It's gonna be a journey, and we're gonna have to figure things out one thing at a time. And the big thing right now is just make sure that there isn't gonna be a showstopper. You know, it's no sense spending thousands of dollars on a project and then find out, oh, actually it's not gonna work because of reasons, right? So we're gonna first of all identify all the major components, make sure, you know, the injection pump, that thing's shot, so that needs to be worked at. The turbos are seized, and I think they're pretty small for this engine, so I want to see if I can find some bigger turbos that works on this, and find a good injection pump and figure out how to adjust it, figure out how to make it work for what I want to do, and then of course figure out just how to rebuilt this engine and what all it needs, and make sure that it doesn't have some major flaw that is gonna completely ruin my budget. You have to, certain parts for this engine are very expensive. I looked up crankshafts and they're like $5,000 to $10,000. Some of them are even more than $10,000. So that can completely ruin your budget if you need something like that. And most likely it'll be good, but we don't know yet. So we definitely want to make sure that all those bases are covered before we get too far into it. Worst comes to worst, I do have a replacement engine for that RV. So that's always an option, just to go back to just, keeping things stock, basically. There's my Freightliner cab over. It's a 1988 Freightliner with a 3406B. So that's the little brother. That's the half brother, if you might call it that, half brother of this V12. So there it's gonna be for a while. We'll get the chains off and put some cover over it. So let's see if we can make sure we don't get any more water and dirt in this engine than that's already there. So that's where it's gonna be. So this project will take some time, so I'll have periodic updates, but wouldn't surprise me if it's gonna be next year before this thing is gonna be in the RV. So I have a million projects going on, and this is one of them, so it's hard to dedicate large amounts of time to any particular project. Well, y'all, thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, appreciate your time, and let me know in the comments what you think. If I missed something, if I have some major problem that I haven't thought of yet, let me know. Or if you think that things are good. Most of the people I talk to, they say either I'm crazy in a good way or crazy in a bad way. So just depends on what you prefer to do, how you prefer to work. Do you want to just make stuff work again with the least amount of time and money, or do you want to reinvent the wheel a little bit and do something cool? So, well, y'all, thanks for your time, and we'll stay in touch. Bye-bye.